Now I want to move on to another thing that is kind of arcane knowledge, and a lot of people don't even know about these entities. But they play a huge role in this because they certify officers to be able to be police officers, and that's post boards. And can you go into what a post board is and how they work and what they're supposed to do and what they actually do?
Right. Every profession, or a lot of professions in states choose to license a lot of professions. Like, for example, registered nurses. There's always, every single state's going to have a medical board. So for doctors, they're going to have a nursing board for nurses. And then there's, in Minnesota, it's called the Post Board, Peace Officer Standard and Training Board. It is likely to be called that, not that same name, but it'll have the same function in other towns, or in other states. They're not all called the same name, but basically it's a licensing board for what they call peace officers or police officers. And what those agencies do, just like any licensing board, they're supposed to set standards for education. They're supposed to set standards for who can be licensed in a particular area as a particular profession. And they're supposed to also set standards of conduct for those licensees. For the people that they license, they're supposed to have standards of conduct so that if you engage in certain kind of conduct, you can't have a license. So, or you'll lose your license, or your license will be suspended, and things like that. And our post board, it's all this is under state statute, and it says what the peace officer standards for conduct are, and what the things that are supposed to happen if the cop violates those standards in some fashion, breaks the law or does this and that or violates the standards. And they're supposed to be able to do things to their licenses, take action on their licenses. And our post board here is a total loser. They do not. We took 31 cases to them of where a particular police officer, he was just terrorizing the community. He was part of a gang task force, and he took full advantage of his role by doing things like stealing. You would see like a Latino person standing at a bus stop, and he would just go up and steal his phone. He stole electronics. He was stealing things, but not only was he stealing things, he was beating people constantly. This guy, we managed to gather from the community 31 complaints of people who had been brutalized by this guy and otherwise treated badly by this guy. And we had videotape footage and all kinds of evidence. We didn't walk in there with 31 pieces of paper of complaints. We walked into the post board with banker's boxes full of evidence against this guy. Banker's boxes full of it. We had videotapes of him beating people and doing all this other stuff. And that post board, this agency that's supposed to take action on these cops' licenses, did nothing. They didn't address it in any way. Actually, they threw it out, and we found out later that they never even looked at the video footage. Also, they were supposed to notify us of the hearing so that we could attend, since we were representing these 31 people. And basically, they didn't do that. They didn't even follow their own laws. And we have never been able to get them to do anything, to follow their laws. And we went to their legislature. We went to the Public Safety Commission, we went to the governor's office, we went to the attorney general's office, and we said, here's what we did, here's what we gave them, here's what they did with it or didn't do with it, and here's how they violated the law, and nothing has happened. So if you ever need any proof that cops are above the law, even their own agency that's supposed to license them is above the law. And just if I can throw one more little thing in there about this, but it's still important to hold these agencies accountable. You have to go to their meetings, find out. Ours meets once a quarter. We go in there, and when we show up, their meeting, whatever their agenda is going to get pushed to the side because we're going to do what we need to do. They have a little public community thing where you can speak in the first 15 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. And we're like, oh, no. I've got all these families of people that have been killed by your licensees sitting here waiting to speak. We will not be done in 10 minutes. You will sit here until we are done. And we will do things like that. We'll go in there and play videos and make them look. We're not going to let them act like they don't know this stuff or that it's going on. So it's really important to hold these. And we've done a lot of protests at the post board. It's very important to let them know that you know what's up and hold their feet to the fire. It's very important to do that. So that's another kind of angle people can take.
So that's the best way to deal with post boards. Really, is just play hardball. Just really come at them hard.
Yeah, we wanted to sue them. We actually had to put together a lawsuit against them, but unfortunately our state law really makes it so you cannot sue them. It would be pretty much impossible to sue them, and it would have been very expensive, and it would have got thrown out anyway. So we didn't go that. We ended up not going that route, but we've just basically made their lives a living hell ever since. It's like, you think that you're going to sit in this little room and you're going to get away with this crap. You are not. Every legislative hearing about getting their funding, we're right there testifying against them. We're right there exposing them. So, and one of the interesting things that's just come out, and this is something, again, for people to think about that they could do in their own areas. We found out the post board, one of the things that says for sure is if a cop is convicted of a gross misdemeanor or felony, that they have to have action on their license. And if it's a felony, their license has to be taken from them. They have to have their license taken. We have found out basically through this one reporter here, she's been doing the research to find out that all these cops have been prosecuted for things like domestic assault or things like that. One guy was like robbing banks on his way to work, and then he was putting the money in his like Minneapolis police locker and all this stuff. These cops have been getting convicted of different crimes, and they have not done any actions on almost all of these cops that got convicted of gross misdemeanors or felonies. They've done nothing with their licenses. And again, that's a violation of the law. So this is all getting exposed, and it's going to be real interesting. We've been actually helping that reporter, and it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that whole thing, because this is ridiculous. It's not acceptable that they just throw out complaints against cops and don't take action on their licenses. So we have to be, we have to hound them, because that's another way to go at that license.
And I think you just touched on a what I kind of feel is like the silver bullet for all of this: accountability. Because you have these tragic things happening way too often by police officers. And the problem, it is a problem, but the real problem isn't that cops are brutal, cops are killing unarmed people. It's that they're doing it and they get away with it. They even keep their job so they can do it again. That's the real heart and soul of the problem. And if we can just get accountability and get those people out of there, I think the whole landscape would change a lot. What do you think?
I completely agree. That is exactly it. When they, like I was telling you about the DOJ and all of this stuff that they're up to, and then they're coming in these communities and doing this National Institute of Trust and Justice and looking at police implicit bias and all of this other kumbaya, what I call kumbaya crap. And I hope it's okay to say that on a radio, or on a show, on post. But basically, when they do all of this stuff, right? It's a way to skirt around the problem. The problem is not that cops don't like the community or there's not enough trust. We don't worry about trust. If the police behaved correctly, we wouldn't have to worry about trust. Trust would follow, okay? Because people are afraid, and they do, and I live in North Minneapolis. I live in an area that's fairly, got a lot of stuff going on in it. And there are sometimes gunshots and things like that happen. And people do not want to be afraid of crime. They want to be able to send their kids outside to play on the swings without worrying about their kids getting blown away and all that stuff. So people don't want to worry about crime. So they feel like they need the cops. And we can have a conversation about whether the cops are, in fact, needed. That's a different whole conversation. But a lot of people feel like they want to be able to rely on the cops to deal with crime, but then they feel like they're squeezed between thugs and blue. And as long as there's no accountability, that will remain the case. So the issue is we have to have accountability. Having little kumbaya sessions about let's trust the police and woody-woo and, implicit bias and all of this stuff ain't going to do jack. Okay, we have to hold police accountable for their conduct. When we do that, then those cops that engage in that conduct go away. And then what follows is what follows, which is maybe that those officers who don't choose to engage in that conduct will be available to people to provide those services if that's what people feel are necessary. But also, it changes the culture. Accountability changes cultures. And the whole thing in our system is that we have a bad culture, and cultures are by definition a top-down phenomenon. So we have police chiefs and other police leadership that think it's fine for people to get the, crap beat out of them all over the place. They think it's fine. They think that cops that do that kind of stuff are really the go-getters, the kind of hot dogs that they like. They keep the so-called riffraff of the community in check, which, by the way, is not referring to criminals. It's referring to you and me,
Right.
and black folks in the community and other targeted populations and so forth. So, they're fine with that conduct. And that's the reason why they don't rein it in, because I'm telling you, in situations where you have police chiefs who say that this conduct is unacceptable and they apply accountability for unacceptable conduct, that conduct goes away. It's the nature of the beast. And there are a few police chiefs who are doing a good job in this country. I'd like to throw that out there. And it's because they set a standard, they hold their people accountable to that standard, and it's just like any other kind of situation. When people are held accountable, they know what conduct is not going to be accepted, and they don't engage in that conduct.
Right.